we still feel the impact of the 2008 financial crisis. It was the deepest crisis since 1929. Banks were nationalized at the expense of taxpayers. Millions of households suffered from mortgage debts higher than the value of their homes. Several AAA banks got the biggest fines in history for manipulating LIBOR, the interbank interest rate. And the unthinkable happened. A solid investment bank, Lehman Brothers, went bankrupt. IMF Director Christine Lagarde and European Commissioner Neelie Kroes both claimed that if Lehman Brothers had been Lehman Sisters, we would not have had this crisis. They both seem to believe that female bankers make financial markets safer. I admit I found the idea attractive. But was it really that simple? I decided to review the research on behavioral differences between men and women. I also carried out new research, some of it together with colleagues. In this talk, I would like to share with you the results of testing the Lehman Sisters hypothesis. On behavioral differences in general, psychologists have tested large numbers of boys and girls and men and women on a wide variety of attitudes. They found that the average differences between them are much smaller than the variation within each group. Think about height. Men are on average a few centimeters taller than women. Did you ever realize that the variation in length between men is much bigger than that difference? An even more surprising finding is that behavior can influence biology. When financial traders watch a screen with asset prices becoming more volatile, their stress hormone, cortisol, shoots up. And when you put a baby in a banker's arms, his testosterone level will go down. So contrary to a popular belief, biology is not destiny. Women don't come from Venus, and men are not from Mars. We share the same planet, and we largely share the same needs and desires, and we behave in very similar ways. What can we learn for the Lehman Sisters hypothesis about this? Well, replacing men by women is not very likely to change banking behavior, as long as banking culture remains the same. A hyper-masculine banking culture consists of competition between colleagues for bonuses, under constant threat of job loss, in an environment where clients are reduced to short-term profit opportunities. Women's and men's biologies will react with higher levels of testosterone and cortisol, and their behavior will adjust accordingly. Because survival in a hyper-masculine culture requires risky behavior, bending the rules, and hiding information from colleagues. Now, what we need for safer financial markets is a transformation towards a much more balanced banking culture. Can Lehman Sisters help with this transformation? Let me tell you what I've discovered about behavioral differences between men and women on 3 key attitudes in finance: on risk, on morality, and on leadership. On risk. Many studies indicate that on average, women take less risk than men. This is beneficial in times of instability, a rather common feature of financial markets. For example, in the US, male hedge fund managers lost twice as much as female hedge fund managers in 2008. But let's not focus too much on this difference. In an analysis of 20 articles reporting risk differences between men and women, a colleague and I found that in only 6 articles, these differences had any sizable effect. In 14 articles, the differences were so small that they're statistically meaningless. In a survey I did right after the crisis among 100 financial professionals in the Netherlands, the women indicated that they were much more flexible in adjusting risk levels in their portfolios than the men. While the men largely stuck to the same medium risk levels as before the crisis, with a good share of them taking high risk, the women were more spreading out across the risk spectrum. So it is the larger variation in risk behavior among women in response to changing market conditions that is the more interesting gender difference. There is no such thing as low-risk behavior coming from Venus. On morality, did you know that the 3 most prominent whistleblowers were all women? One of them was Madeleine Tomczyk, the chief risk manager of Lehman Brothers. When she told her boss in 2006 that the bank was finding itself in a danger zone, she was fired. Since the crisis, we see more women in top financial positions than ever before. Director of the IMF, chair of the Fed, CEO of a bank in Iceland, and several central bank presidents. But also morality doesn't come from Venus. Women are no better human beings than men. Our review of experiments on altruism indicates that only 4 out of 22 articles reporting differences on altruism between men and women actually show any sizable effects. And you know, equally divided between women showing more altruistic behavior and men showing more altruistic behavior. Instead, in an experimental study on cooperative behavior that we did, we found that women and men rather react on their beliefs about the cooperative behavior of their opponent. When men played against women, they show much more cooperative behavior than when playing against other men. Apparently, men believe women to be more social, and that's why they like to cooperate with us, for mutual benefit. But the women in the experiment, they did not show any systematic difference in playing against men or playing against women. Some women believe men to be more cooperative, and other women believe men to be more selfish. The conclusion on morality is not that there are inherent differences in social behavior between men and women, but rather that both believe that there are some stereotypes about each other's behavior. Men think that women are all Mother Teresa's, and women think that men are either George Clooney or Jack the Ripper. So what the results of our experiment indicate is that men believe women to be from Venus, and that women believe men to be from Mars, and they both adjust their behavior to these stereotype beliefs. On leadership, the 3rd category of behavioral differences between men and women, I found in a recent survey that I did among more than 600 bankers in the Netherlands that they are dissatisfied with their leadership. Only 25% observes their leaders to walk the talk about serving client interest. And only 16% says they really trust their leadership. Consultancy firm McKinsey has found that firms with more women on their boards show better performance. And also other studies indicate that firms have higher profits, less debt exposure, with more women in top positions. But is this due because of inherent differences between men and women? Or is it rather the consequence of a masculine stereotyping of leadership? Management scholars have found that when they ask peers to assess their leaders along a range of leadership qualities, that female leaders score better on average across the whole range of stereotyped masculine and feminine leadership qualities, while male leaders largely limit themselves to stereotype masculine qualities. So male leaders may perhaps come from Mars, but female leaders certainly don't come from Venus. So what is the conclusion for the Lehman Sisters hypothesis? The variety of results from studies on risk, on morality, on leadership indicates that we can support it, but not for the reason that men and women come from different planets. We can support it by realizing that what drives the differences is not fixed biologies or inherently different identities of men and women, but rather the fact that they both hold on to stereotype beliefs. Our whole society is still very much influenced by stereotype ideals of men showing agency behavior and women showing connecting behavior. These stereotypes are continuously reinforced through our learned attitudes of masculinity and femininity. As long as banking and finance are stereotyped as masculine, strong agency attitudes will be highly rewarded in banks and will dominate over connecting attitudes. And since both men and women have the flexibility to adapt to such a culture, more women in banking and finance will only help to transform the sector when at the same time the business moves towards a balance between agency values on the one hand and connecting values on the other hand. A balance as we find it in so many areas of human life on planet Earth. Now that we've solved the mystery of Lehman Sisters, the bigger question is, what can you do to help a transformation away from destructive cultures of hypermasculinity? You can contribute by no longer running your business along gender stereotypes, by hiring colleagues who move beyond traditional feminine and masculine attitudes, and by rewarding connecting behavior in the same way as agency behavior in your organization, in your home, and in your social life.